Jacob Kirkbride, SAFC Fan TV. I'm absolutely honoured to be joined by a former Sunderland captain who truly represents everything about our great club, who every time he put on that shirt, he knew what it meant to the people of the city who support the club through thick and thin. The man himself, Kevin Bull. Kevin, how you doing?
Well. Yes, very well, Jacob. Thank you. What a lovely intro as well.
Cheers, thanks a lot. How's the ambassador role at the club treating you?
Yeah, I think it's part of the roles I do at the moment. Obviously, since I stepped away from coaching, the ambassador role is something I thoroughly enjoy doing. It gives me the opportunity to represent the club and over the years at numerous functions, or being with high-ranking people to sort of give an understanding of what our club's all about and how we are as people up here. And like I said, and that's coming from a lad that's from the South Coast. Lots of different roles and responsibilities within it, which I thoroughly enjoy. Then obviously I also look after our young lads when they go out on loan, mentoring and sort of watching our young lads progress is probably, for me, a great part of the job, because it's like, how can I explain? It's probably to the degree where I'm saying to them, I want you to have and achieve what I did. I want you to get that opportunity to play professional football as a career. Not everybody does it. We've got a lot of our lads that may have gone into sort of normal work stream in the sense of jobs as accountants, surgeons, and you name it. And you always back them as well, because sometimes our pathways are all different. Some are lucky enough to get into football, some it doesn't quite happen, and you help them go down another avenue. So I quite enjoy that, because when I watch them, and then I watch a player that's given it his all, which we currently have one of our young players out on loan at a local club. I've been to watch him 2 or 3 times, and he's really embraced it. Hasn't seen it as a step down, seen it as a step to say, right, I'm going to play, but when I'm playing there, I need to show everybody why I'm at Sunderland Football Club. And one of the overriding things I've always said is whenever one of our players goes to a club on loan, they're representing our club in the sense of where they're from, but they're going to do the best they can for the club they're going on loan at. But what I really would like to say is every time we go and watch them, we'd be able to pick them out. If we didn't, I would be disappointed.
How different is having this role at the club now compared to the coaching side of things? I guess at times it's more relaxing, like watching on the sidelines, compared to when you're up in the stands.
I would have said, you probably could put it down as being a bit more relaxing. But the only thing is, but when you're the style of person I am, you enjoy being on the touchline, you enjoy being on the pitch, and does it mean your heart rate goes through the roof and your blood's pumping around your body at God knows what speed? Absolutely. Sometimes you get a buzz out of that feeling of being up for the fight. Yeah, I've got to be honest with you, you do. So take it from me, sometimes actually sitting there, having no effect on certain things and no influence on it can actually be quite challenging in itself. And yeah, it sometimes can be great, because you can go and enjoy a game and try, and you don't distance yourself from the game and the emotions and the result, absolutely not. But sometimes you can sort of have that barrier in front of you that you can watch the game with, I suppose, a degree of ease, because you're not on the touchline. And I sound like I'm being hypocritical, but no, I do genuinely say being on the touchline does create its own stress, pressures, whichever you want to say. But it's also bloody good fun as well. And especially when, things are going your way and you get the result you want, that euphoria feeling you get that most managers, I would have said nowadays, try very much to keep level, is brilliant.
I mean, did you ever think you'd ever find yourself in this role that you're having at the moment?
I think we have to accept that as life moves on, situations evolve, and then because they evolve, you end up going down a pathway maybe you didn't choose. And to a degree that might have happened with me. I think I'm at an age now, unfortunately, where when I played with all my heart, and I have this argument with people when I sometimes go, you weren't the best player in the world, and they go down the fact that I was wholehearted 100% and wore my heart on my sleeve and loved kicking the shit out of people. But what they also forget, I was technically good, and I sometimes now sort of say, well, I tell you what, then what about if I tell you all of these things, and then all of a sudden you go down the route of what your traits were as a player, and they go, well, I never used to see it like that, because what I loved was this. So, like I said, the way things evolved, I'm at this moment in time, I have my knee, I've got a metal knee due to my, shall we say, bits and pieces on the pitch, which again, I'll be honest, I wouldn't change anything. The amount of injuries I've got, no, definitely. And when I wake up in the morning and You know, my neck at this moment in time, I've got 3 vertebrae in my neck that I've got to have a big operation. It's trying to pick the right time to have that. And when I went to see the surgeon, you know, like, it's quite comical because I'm talking to him and you know, he's telling me all what could go wrong, and at the end of it, I go to him, like, just out of interest. He said, yes. I said, can anything go right? Like, you know, but they have to tell you that. So I think sometimes the pathway life takes you, you just have to not always accept, but you sometimes have to understand. And like I said, I was going to get to an age where, like I say, my knee, I should have probably had the operation many years before that, but I chose not to because I thoroughly enjoyed doing what I'm doing. I sometimes put the operation off I'm having now. I tend to build up what I need, and all of a sudden I go to my missus, right, I'm going in hospital for my operation, and she'd look at me as if to say, oh, he's ready for it now. I hated being injured as a player. Absolutely detested it. I felt it was a waste of time.
I can imagine it's the worst feeling in the world.
It is, and I think sometimes that's where I have the utmost sympathy with players that are injured, because I know what they're going through. You know, I've had a lot of the injuries I've had over the years. You know, even one game I got kicked on the shin, thought nothing of it. Admittedly, I wasn't a massive drinker as a player. I didn't feel I had the capabilities to be able to do that and play to the level I wanted. But this weekend we ended up out on the sauce for a couple of nights, and one of those, I still to this day, I think I came down the banisters of the stairs at the Gosforth Marriott at Lee Clark's 30th birthday. I think it was his 30th, and my missus was mortified and understandably so, but I think I was just having fun, like, you know. But that's how, you know, I didn't used to drink much, so I obviously was enjoying that night. But I woke up on the Monday morning feeling absolute.
Gets worse.
Am I allowed? No, but don't forget, then I was an elite athlete then, and you know, and I felt like, am I allowed to swear within context or not? Yeah, I felt like shite, and I kept thinking, I should drink. So I thought nothing of it. Went in training, my shin by now, because I got kicked on the Saturday, was really throbbing, and I thought, it's just a kick, like it'd go away. Thought nothing of it. Went training. In the end, couldn't train because it hurt that much. Came in, like I said, still felt awful. Went home. The next day we were meant to go to Scotland because my sister had just had a baby. So we had planned, me and my wife, on our day off to drive to Scotland and see the baby. But I felt absolutely awful, like I had the flu. So I've gone to my missus, I can't come. And I can remember to this day her giving me a right bollocking, saying, you know, basically I didn't fancy it, typical man type thing. So she went off to Scotland. And by the time she came home that night, I was even worse. And I was 1 minute hot, 1 minute cold, 1 minute hot, 1 minute cold. And our former commercial director lived across the road, and he could see in our front room. And he said, I looked in one time, you had a quilt wrapped round you. And he said, I thought, soft bastard. He went, I looked over 5 minutes later, and you're wearing a pair of shorts. He said, I kept thinking, what's he doing over there? And I got septicemia. I got blood poisoning, and I didn't realise that.
Probably came as a bit of a shock then.
Absolutely, yeah. So the next day I went into training and saw the club doctor down at the stadium, a light downstairs. We used to see him. I was with my wife, actually. She came with me because I couldn't drive, and he literally said, you've got to go from here straight to the hospital with him. And lucky enough, we had a gentleman called Mr. McClatchy, who was a professor, looked after us. I ended up in Hartlepool Royal, and I got there. They obviously had no idea about much, so I ended up in a room on my own, absolutely quite delirious, if I'm honest, and that to wait till they found out what the strain and all that, so they could get the antibiotics in us. And it was ages, and in the end, I'm actually going that mad. I'm going to my missus. I just want to go home. And obviously then it started there. So I had 3 days in there, and then 7 days in a private. So I was in hospital for 10 days. And these are the sort of things that over the course of your career you go through. But do I regret any of it? Nah, absolutely not.
No. I mean, it's a funny story, I should say. I was at the under-23s game against Aston Villa with my dad last week. And obviously I spotted you out in the crowd, and then my dad just tapped me on the shoulders that he could tackle that fella.
Yeah. And I think what it is, the attributes of footballers should always be seen as the individual, as in, if you all had the same Kevin Ball, you had 11 Kevin Balls in the team, would you be successful to a certain degree? Like if you had 11 players of a certain skill, would you be successful to a certain degree? I think the blend of the right players in a team is of paramount. And I look back at the skills I had, and I look back at the teams I played in, and you look at a team and go, well, we should be great with these players, but the blend didn't work. You then get Peter REID come in, who probably has a little bit more time to sort it out, and then he finally gets that blend right over the years. You know, like we had the first time we got promoted. Well, he saved us from relegation. I'd always like to think we had enough in the lockers the first time when he came to save us from that. Then obviously we win the championship. With that team there, the balance was brilliant. but the first team had a degree of resilience and desire and a will to win that I don't think I've ever seen before. And they would fight. We would fight each other, and that sounds really stupid when you tell people that. But we wouldn't fight each other because we wanted to just fight each other. We fight each other because I was saying I'm demanding more from you. I mean, I can still remember having an argument with Martin Scott. We were on an afternoon out or something. We had a massive row. So actually, we went outside to have this row about football and stuff to do with football. And once we finished, we went, ready, yeah, come on, let's go back and have a drink now. And that's the mentality we had. So that was sort of stoked by individuals within the team, not just me. You know, I was lucky that, yes, I was captain of that team. We had a lot of individuals within the team that were prepared to say their piece, were prepared to stick up, but also prepared to challenge each other and demand from each other. And then when you get on a bit of a roll, that helps. And we did. And then I still think that season that Peter Reid brought in Shay Given, and I can still picture him telling me in the corridor at Stadium, like at Roker Park, he went, Skip, I need a word. So I went, yes, Gaffer. He went, I'm bringing Shay Given in tomorrow, I'm dropping Alec. Now, Alec was one of my big mates. And I looked at the Gaffer as if to say, you've fucking gone mad, like, you know. And I went, who's Shay Given? He just went, you'll see tomorrow. Like, I went, fair enough. He went, box it off with Alex, make sure he's okay, which I thought was correct. And at the end of the day, he knew Alex was my mate, but I was the captain of the team. The one thing I was always going to do is protect my teammates, look after my teammates and make sure they're okay. And he done that. But that was where we started getting a great team. And then when you look at that season, when we've won the league, Alec had to come back in the team. We hadn't won the league, I don't think, by then. Shay went back to Blackburn. Now, you've dropped a goalkeeper, brought someone in who's done magnificently well. You haven't quite got over the line with what you want to achieve, and you're saying to the goalkeeper drop, oh, by the way, you're coming back in the team now, and you need to perform because we want to win the league or win promotion. And he'd done it. And that's why when people say to me about the character of players I've played with, Alec Chamberlain will always be up there with the top ones because of the resilience he showed. And I think, like I said, going back, balance and all that sort of stuff is the most important thing in football that people understand. Great teams need a great balance.
Do you reckon, like, the skills you had as a captain, was that mainly down to what Peter brought to the dressing room?
No, not at all.
Would you say you had that throughout your career?
I'll be honest with you. The gentleman, like you said, was your dad that said about me tackling. Is tackling a skill? And when I talk to people, they get confused with what a football skill is. A skill is a myriad of things, whether it's dribbling, you know, flicks, whatever they want to do, cross, whatever you want to do. People associate skill with that. Heading is a skill, right? I'm in the garden last night with my grandson, teaching him how to head the ball. And to be fair to him, he was excellent at it.
You weren't bad with your head yourself?
Yeah, so what I'm saying is heading is a skill which you can see by the goals I've scored, but or the fact that I was 5'9" and played centre-back in what is the Premier League and the old Division 1.
Premier Passions on the other night and saw some of the goals.
Yeah, so you see that, and that's a bit that... So heading's a skill. Tackling is a skill. If you look nowadays, tackling's going out the game. It's going out the game because nowadays you can't literally touch anybody because
with all the cameras in place.
There's all the cameras. I mean, when I talk about that, the cameras in place stop you and allowing you to punch somebody. That's different, or elbow somebody. And I'll be honest with you, I quite like doing that as well because I know people done it to me. But at the end of the game, we'd shake hands. But what I mean is, tackling is a skill. There are players that are electrically quick, and at times tackles can be mistimed. But tackling is a skill. I don't care what anybody says. Now, if your skills are tackling, why shouldn't you be lauded for that? If your skills are heading, why shouldn't you be lauded for that? If your skills are organisation, why shouldn't you be lauded for that? So I could list all the skills that I had as a footballer, but I might not put in it, but I was great at step overs and I was great at, my awareness at times wasn't great as a midfielder, but it was really, because if I played forward, it was great. If I saw everything in front of me, it was brilliant. Now, Bobby Saxton would always say to me, whatever you do, you're not allowed to receive the ball you're back to play. Now, that wasn't something I'd been taught as a young player, so it probably wasn't in my ammo. So I went, yeah, okay then. Now, Bobby Saxton, along with Peter Reid, and I love the fact that Reid was this person that everybody looked up to. But I'm telling you 100%, Peter Reid was successful because he had Bobby Saxton. They were a team. And Sacco appreciated the skills I brought to the club. So when I talk to people about skills and that, you have to be understanding that everybody's different.
I mean, when you talk about skills in a footballer there, like, do you keep an eye out for potential young players coming through now, whether they have those particular traits that you potentially had as a player?
I think the traits I had, and when we talk about did Peter Reid put them into me, I think the fact that Peter Reid came to the club and the traits I had as a player, did that help? Absolutely, 100%. Did Peter Reid see in me somebody that he could depend on every game? Absolutely, yeah. Did he know that if I weren't at it for some reason, but I would still give 100%? Yes. Did he know I'd demand from my peers and my teammates? Absolutely. Did he know that if the shit hit the fan, would I be first at the front, which had happened in the past? Absolutely. So when I look at the young players now, what was built into me was probably one, innate anyhow. It would have been in me by nature. My dad used to play me at everything, whether it be table tennis, which he was a champion, and I could never ever beat him. Darts, obviously, the era where you would go in the pub and play darts, I'd try my hardest to beat him at that. Cards, every game you can think of.
About on the golf course?
No, well, we used to play, believe it or not, pitch and putt up on the East Hill. We'd go up there and he'd beat me at that. He took great delight in beating me at everything. And I used to cry at times as a young person, right? And I can't believe I'm admitting that, because I was that frustrated.
Human.
Yeah, but I found it was frustration. I'd cry because I wanted to win. I look at that now and I think what my dad done was basically saying, well, if you don't win, find a way to win. You know, you've got to be better if you want to be a winner. Everything we've done was competitive. We even go over the West Hill. Now, I know East Hill was literally one side of the town, by the way, and the West Hill was obviously other side. And we lived on the West Hill. In the summer, we would go and play cricket and football, right? Or football, he would say, right, go and get your mates. And he'd come in from the, working on the building, and would go over there. We might have one day 6 aside, one day 8 aside, Monday 4 aside, he'd play. Then it was the cricket season, we'd play cricket, but he would never play on my team. I was also fortunate that I had a gentleman called Ken King, who was obviously my mate Mark's dad, who loved taking us out to play football, but everything then was competitive. It was a case of we would play literally 6v6 or 3v3, he'd be in goal, and he was brilliant in goal. And we'd play up there for hours, but where I used to live, at times he'd say, I'll meet you there, and if I didn't make it on time, I'd have a 2 mile run to go and find him. But I'd done it because I wanted to play football. Now, when I look now, do they have the same mentality of winning? I don't think if I'm perfectly honest with you, we always say that taking part at certain levels is important, and I understand that, because the skills you have to have at anything, there has to be a level of taking part and a level of competitiveness.
Yeah. You either have it or you don't in sport.
And I think what you have to understand is we haven't quite got that crossover right, because you will have people that want to take part, and you will have people that want to take part to win. If you don't get that crossover right, you actually don't work for either of them, because the ones that just want to take part probably don't enjoy playing with those that are competitive. Those that are competitive won't enjoy with those that want to take part, because neither of them are really achieving what they want. It's trying to get that balance right. But I look at young players now, and the one thing I'll always look for is, does it come across that they have a love for football? Does it come across that they really enjoy it? When the ball goes out of play, do they rush to get it if it's time's right? If there's a chance for them to tackle, will they have a go at tackling? Will they try and head it? Whether they do or not doesn't matter. Do they have a degree of real enjoyment for their football? Now, that was brought home to me, and I'm going to name drop a little bit here, about 5 years ago when I just had my knee replaced, and it was not anywhere near what I would class as a stage where I should have been out doing stuff, but I was, because I wanted to get out and do stuff. I was bored. So they didn't send me. They asked me to go down to Coventry to watch a young player down there at Nuneaton. So I got the train to Coventry, taxi. It was cold, so you can imagine what my knee was like. And watch this young player playing for Coventry under 21s against whoever it was at the time. So I sit up in the stand, Baltic cold, watch this game thinking, out comes the kid I'm about to watch. He was little. He had white boots on, white skins, both shorts and arms, and he looked like, I'm looking at him thinking, really? Right? Really? So then I probably sighed like I just did then. I'm watching him, and all of a sudden I thought, I like him. And I liked him because he displayed a love of football. He displayed an energy and an enjoyment for what he was doing, whether it be, if it was a corner, he wanted to take him. Whether it was a free kick, he wanted to take him. If he had the ball, he wanted to take people on.
He wanted to win.
If he lost the ball, he wanted to get it back. He bought tackles brilliantly, knew where he was on the pitch. Everything about his game was magnificent. And I came away there thinking, that's brilliant. And I actually bollocked myself a bit, because I thought, typical, I've learnt over the years not to judge a book by its character, and there I've gone and done it. He was absolutely magnificent. But the overriding thing, if someone said to me, give me a definitive thing about him, I'd have said he loves playing football. Now, that was James Maddison, Coventry.
Wow.
Right? Now, at the time, would we as a club, could we have bought him? Possibly, possibly not. Would coming to us at that moment in time been good for him? No one will ever know. So when we look at players and you go, well, we should have gone and got him, sometimes bringing those players to our club at that time doesn't necessarily they still have the right pathway, because sometimes you buy them, but you still have to loan them back out again because they have to find their way. They're not ready for the first team then, but they're too good for the level they're at. If you don't then find them a level that they can play at and enjoy and be better at, they actually stagnate. Now, I know for a fact there's players in our 21s, and I've seen, or 23, sorry, and I've seen it in the past when I've had the 21s, they conquer it, right? And everyone's going, oh, they're brilliant. And all of a sudden they don't start playing so well. And everyone goes, rubbish he is. I went, no, he hasn't. He's just conquered what he's doing, and we need to find him a new level. We need to challenge him again. He needs to go out and get a loan move now. And that's why I quite enjoy doing that. But, yeah, I love things like that.
I mean, you've had some absolutely magical days in your career playing for our club. I mean, it's just so brilliant that you still have this fantastic or you've had all along this fantastic relationship with Peter. I mean, you being a captain, it's always like important to develop that good relationship off the pitch as well. And it's like brilliant that it's still continued that way. And obviously we've seen the stuff about obviously Roy Keane and Alex Ferguson and stuff, like how that's, and other captains and their previous managers as well, how it's completely gone down the plug hole.
But you see like that there, so, I mean, I really haven't read anything about, but I don't really take much notice of many other people, if I'm honest. But, you know, if I was to sort without knowing the full details of the situation between Roy and Sir Alex, sometimes we do what we do. There will still be always that respect behind all of that, and I think you have to understand. But sometimes if you disagree with someone, I think that's also a sign of respect for each other, that you won't back down. Yeah. Because you're actually saying, listen, I think I'm right, and the other bloke's going, well, listen, so do I think I'm right? And there is that degree of, like, you know, you hit butting heads type thing. So with regards to Peter, that we would have fell out. I mean, I'm not being funny. We nearly had a scrap at Grimsby because he said something to me but didn't say it to my face. Now, he didn't mean, when I look back, he didn't probably mean to say what he said. He probably didn't mean to do what he'd done, and he probably didn't mean to do it how he'd done it. But at the time, I'd have willingly hit him over the head with something, and I couldn't help it because he didn't say it to my face. And what he said was quite derogatory to me, and not in the context of anything I'd done. But I understand, looking back now, well, the reason now I know why he'd done it. I probably knew literally within 2 minutes of the game ending when I spoke to him. And it's something that you learn. Now, do I bear grudges against any of my managers? I've probably had disagreements with them, but I don't think I've ever come across one I could really think, actually, no, I'm not having that. Now, if Peter come out and said something, or one of my managers come out and said something that I thought was wrong, of course I would defend myself. But with Peter, that time then, it was probably the only real good row we had. He knew where he stood with me, and I knew where I stood with him. For me, that was important. What he also knew and had to be aware of, and I had to be aware of, that was I had his back and he had my back. Because as captain of Sunderland Football Club, you have to have a degree of being allowed to be captain. If you have somebody that is telling you what to do all the time, I wouldn't have enjoyed that. And I'd have probably told him to stick the captaincy. He allowed me, if I'm brutally honest, to flourish as a captain with his help. And when you consider the fact and the player he was and the leader he was, couldn't have been any better. And then, like I said, you could go and speak to Bobby SAXTON, who was probably the best manager I've ever known in my life, because he saw his players as people. And if you see your players as people, that gives you a chance. If you just see them as a commodity or a player and don't know anything about them, you're going to struggle a bit.
I mean, like, obviously you're touching on Bobby there as well. Like, between Peter and Bobby, what would you say is like your standout happiest memory with the two?
I don't know, really, to be honest with you. It's probably difficult to pick one, but I suppose when you consider, there's little moments I talk about when managers or coaches do things that are not epiphanies, but they're pivotal in success or failure. What somebody can say at a given time can either elate somebody, take them out of a doldrum, or put them into a doldrum. You know, you imagine thinking you've played well and then being told by a manager you've had a shit game. That's going to put you from euphoria into the doldrums straight away. When we left the playoff finals, that in the change room afterwards, it was so devastatingly quiet.
I can imagine.
That it needed somebody to say something that was going to turn around and take you out of that. It was going to be somebody that needed to say something that would take you out of that doldrum to give you hope again. And we'll all have our own version of our stories after the playoff final. Sometimes I listen to the other lads and I think, oh no, does that mean I got mine wrong? But I'm sure this is a memory I've got of it. And I can remember sitting there, and I'm sure if I remember, there was all the drink there, champagne, we wanted to have that and everything, and we were just sat there really looking for somebody to actually say or do something that would take you out of that doldrum. Now, as captain, could I have done it? Well, I can tell you about another incident I've done years before that. But at that moment in time, I think the kick and the kahunas we had was that big that nobody had it in them to say anything. And we sat there with our heads down, quiet, in a change room at Wembley. And I don't mean this disrespectfully to Wembley. Wembley was a shithole by then. You know, it got to the end of its life, and it did need what was coming for it, which after that game started was the revamp. So it wasn't like you were in a plush place. You were in a place that had probably experienced an unbelievable amount of highs and lows over the years, and you had become one of those lows. Mm-hmm. And you were sat in somewhere where it came across like that. It was not a particularly fantastic changing room. You're feeling like a bag of shit because you've just been beat on penalties after everything you've just gone through.
Especially scoring 4 goals.
Yeah, 4 goals, you know, and I was one of the penalty takers. I don't think that really come into it. I think it was just that thing of, we've just lost. You know, you didn't really break anything else down. We've just lost. And then Bobby Saxton turned around and went, and this is how I saw it. He just went, well, Mickey, it was a fucking shit penalty anyhow. And we all started laughing. Now, bang, that was it. That was the moment that we all went, it's fucking right, Mickey. And we started battering Mickey. And Mickey's going, no, you know, because he used to talk like that in them days, not like he does now. He's posh now.
I mean, I had an episode of Premier Passions on last night. There was a clip in the dressing room at Aston Villa where I honestly couldn't understand the word he was saying.
Usako?
No,
Mickey.
Mickey Gray.
Yeah. But look, so you look at that one, right? So that was, for me, an epiphany by a coach that knew what to say, when to say it. And if I take you then to when we won the league with 105 points, because of the time we won the league the first time, we got beat at Tranmere away, right? We go down to Tranmere, Bridgie played, and I think missed a hatful, so I blame him for it, actually. And we played a game, we lose it 2-1, should have won it, last game of the season, and then we went off to, of all places, I'm sure it was Magaluf. I'm sure it was Magaluf. Why
one of those islands.
Yeah, but why would you choose Magaluf? I don't know. I know people would go there at party time. You know, if we've just won the championship, I'm sure we would have been offered anywhere else, you know. And we goes off there, and the boys love it. So we go off. The overriding thing of that trip was, I can remember going, still pitching now in bars with Scotty and Aggers, because they'd been as well as I had before, but they knew a bit more about it. But I can remember the shit we were getting from some supporters because we'd lost against Tranmere. They were disappointed we had ended the season losing the game when we were champions, and we say we should have won. Now, we didn't go to that game and toss it off, I promise you. We went to that game to win. We just didn't take our chances, so we lose the game. So instead of ending the season with that, we've won the league and we've won the last game, it was more a case of, we've won the league, but we've lost the last game. It took a shine off it.
You see more of a trend like that with results on the last day of the season now.
So you see that. Now, we went away, and there's a lot of supporters in Magaluf, or wherever we were, I can't remember. And in the main, they were all great. But we did have a sprinkling that were giving us shit over the losing of this game. To a degree, I can remember we were in a bar one day, and this lad was with his mates, and I'm sure they were like his dad, some of them, and the lad was working himself unbelievably. And even one of the blokes said, why don't you just knock him out and then be done with it? Now, it wasn't just necessarily to me, it probably was to the group we were with. Because even he was getting on their tits because he kept going on and on about this freaking Tranmere game. But
he didn't have a black and white top on.
No, he was a Sunderland fan. He was there. He just basically says, you shit, you should have won. Oh, he was giving us pelters. Now, at the time, I kept thinking, oh, wait, mate, come on, we've just won the league. It's gone now, move on. Mm-hmm. But I couldn't forget it. So when I talk about Bobby Saxton and moments of knowing when to get the best out of people, so you now fast forward, we get promoted then, we have the relegation, we have the playoff, we're now winning the league, right? So a few years later, and we're down playing a game, and we win it at Bury, we're now league champions, no one can catch us, everything's hunky-dory. 3 or 4 games to go. Do you know all I kept thinking about was that frickin' Tranmere game? And I'm saying frickin' so I don't say the big F word, right? That's all I kept thinking about was Tranmere, right? Now all the other lads probably had no idea, thinking, what the fuck are you like this for still, right? But I kept thinking of the Tranmere, and I thought, right, that's it, we're not going to lose another game. Now, I'm not saying I don't think I started in all the 4 of the games, because with games we were playing, the gaffer went, no, I'll let him play today. We'd done our jobs. But my thing was all the time was, we ain't going to get beat again now. That's all I kept thinking. We are not going to get beat. And I am not going to change the way I play. I'm not going to change the way I train. We are not going to get beat. So I'm training up on the top of Charlie Early, right at the very top. We're having a 5 at the end of the training. And I think Nick Summerby fouled me. So I've gone round at Sacco. And am I right swearing in context? So I've turned round to Sacco, gone, oh, that was a fucking foul like that. Because I was in the zone like. And he brilliantly stopped training. He went, pardon? I went, it's a foul. A foul. And this is how we done it. A foul, eh? A foul, Kevin. He used to call me Kevin when he stopped me, right? And I knew then I was in trouble. He called me Kevin.
Not Kev or Bally.
No, it was just Kevin, yeah. And he'd go, oh, Kevin, like that. It's a foul, is it? And he proceeded to say, you've kicked the fucking shit out of these lads all season in training, and now you want a foul, do you? I went, yeah, like that. Get in, he went. Fucking
Brilliant.
sent me in, right? And in the end, I'm going, I'm not fucking going nowhere. He's gone, Kevin, get in. I went, no. And then he poked me in the chest. I went, Sacco, don't fucking poke me in the chest. Now, don't get me wrong, I would never done. I loved him, right? I went, don't fucking poke me in the chest, Sacco. And with that, he went, Kevin, do you want me to get the manager? And I went, no. And I went and sat down on the grass about 50 yards from where they were training. I was fucking fuming, thinking, why is he having a go at me when I'm doing everything right? I'm working my bollocks off. I'm still training hard, right? And he's having a go at me, of all people.
Next thing you know, probably Peter's on the end of the blower.
No. Do you know what? So we literally, I think the gaffer, I don't even know where he was probably in that day, but he was probably in the change rooms because Saka done all the training. It wasn't REID. REID come out to observe, but Saka done it. So anyhow, they're now training, right? And I'm doing sit-ups and press-ups because I was fuming. So after training, I thought, fucking, I can't believe he done that to me. So I knocked on his door, said, can I have a word, please? And he went, yeah. And he just started laughing. I went, what you fucking laughing at? He went, think about it. He went, what was the difference between you and them today? And what do you mean? He went, did I have an issue with you training? He went, you're working your bollocks off. He said, you're doing it as you always do. But some of that lot, he went, weren't. So I need to send a message out. And unfortunately, you were the recipient of the message.
Oh, dear.
It's fucking brilliant. So all of a sudden, but I've gone in there feeling a little bit, not anxious, because I knew I was doing was right, but a little bit like, what the fuck has he done that for? To somebody that came out of there knowing I was doing my job. So when we talk about great managers, great coaches, Sacco, he just had a way with knowing how to deal with you. And that in itself is for me an unbelievable art. And he was brilliant.
Now, Kevin, to what we've seen on the pitch from the team so far this season, overall, how would you assess the start we've had? I mean, it could have been a lot worse than people make out personally, but I mean, it's hard to judge at this stage, especially with new players coming into the team. I mean, it's almost, I think, like a blessing in disguise now. We've got this 2-week break because Jack can sit his players down and assess, right, where can we improve from here in this time we've got not playing? Yeah, you know what I mean?
I'll be honest with you. I have no idea where we are in the league, so I tend to not take much notice of it. Yeah, and I don't take much notice of it because I don't suppose I do really. I always used to train and play week to week, and the reason being, if I start thinking too far ahead, it means I'm not concentrating on the here and now. So my way of dealing was game to game. Yeah, I'm not saying we shouldn't set targets of little blocks of 4 or something. I get all that, but that's how I used to do it. If I've watched this season so far, have we been consistent? The argument to that would be no, not really. Have we had to have change of personnel, especially in games and that? Have I seen enough within the team? Yeah, I'm starting to enjoy it. Now, I got down to Burnley last week, and obviously I've been away to all our games. I think I've only missed one. When you saw the Burnley team, I spoke with a manager of another club who was in front of me, had a bit of crack with him, and he went, I think you might find it tough tonight. I think it was a game where the old adages and cliches of football were so evident in goals change games. But the biggest overriding thing for that game on the night for me was the fact that Burnley put out a strong team. Very strong team. Experienced playing team. And we were looking at it going, if that's your second 11, you know, you've got... And then you look at probably what they've got for their first 11. That's why they probably stand in the Prem, because they've got great balance. And Burnley, to give them credit, were very, very good. Very good first half. But we stayed in the game. Now... To give our lads credit, they stayed in the game. We're a bit fortuitous where the ball landed at Will's feet, but he's still got to finish it, and he did. You go in half-time, and you're actually going, great, because after they scored their goal, you know, there's still sort of 70, 80 minutes to go. You're thinking, bloody hell, this could be a long night, this. But they stayed in the game. They showed a resilience. They stayed in the game. And then you get the two chances that we did, or they hit the post, and then we had their chances and we scored the goals, and all of a sudden they talk about goals change games. It did. Burnley didn't capitulate. Burnley lost their way a bit, but we kept our way of playing. And it was a magnificent performance. And I think on the back of the other results we had, the Wimbledon one, were Wimbledon the hardest team to ever play against? No, but sometimes you've sometimes got to say to yourself, well, whoever's put in front of you, if you beat them, get a pat on the back. But it seems like sometimes that no matter what they do, there's always somebody out there ready to moan. And I think we've got to get away from that attitude. We are where we are at the moment. We as a club who are who we are, but we've just sometimes maybe got to tweak that mentality a little bit now and go a bit more positive for me.
Probably more in the fan base. I mean, leave in terms of improvements, leave that to the managers.
Well, I think that what's allowed every supporter, not every supporter, but a lot of supporters nowadays, is social media's allowed an opinion, and then the opinion can fester and grow bigger or larger, whatever you want to do. Sometimes they don't want to listen to each other because they will argue about it, but it has given them a platform to voice their opinion. I understand that. My point of view, sometimes I just think, let's be a bit more positive. This is our club and we need to be positive about it. Now, if you take everything into account that's happened over the years, and you know, you look back at the manager, they go back last year having the biggest budget, and that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to automatically win the league. The biggest budget was probably also because of the fact that he had players that unfortunately, for whatever reason, hadn't left, that were on an absolute fortune. So that technically is the wrong way around. He's just saying, well, I've got the biggest budget, but I'm not saying I want the biggest budget. It's just because I've got the biggest budget. And did those players always perform as well as what they could have done? The ones on the highest wage? Not necessarily. Sometimes you just got to make sure you get the right players for the league at the moment in time. Having the biggest budget isn't necessary to say you're going to win it. So there's got to be that transition between that last year and becoming, if I'm brutally honest, what we are at this moment in time, a League One team. And you've got to get that right and then get out of this league and then become probably a championship team, then a championship promotion winning team. Then when you do that, you've got to get into the Premier League and say to yourself, we need to be a team that survives in the Premier League. Then you've got to be a team that says, actually, I want to finish middle now. And then you might say the next 5 years, I want to finish middle now. And now we're saying, well, we'd like to finish a bit higher. It's got to be small steps, and it's got to be in such a way that it's got to be resilient, it's got to be analytical, and it's got to be done right. So when I look at it all now, the start of the season, the Peterborough one's kicked us in the bollocks, really, isn't it? Because we've all gone down there with...
Reality check.
Yeah, say a reality check, a little bit of aspiration, think, oh, we're going to do this year. And I did say at the time it's going to be a good marker against Peterborough. And did I expect us to come away with a 3-0 drubbing? No. You know, when the game was playing, I didn't think we were particularly playing well. I don't think Peterborough were particularly playing well. I don't think there was much in the game at all. Not at all.
Maddison
and
steps
then
up.
You look at Maddison and that, and the goal he got was outstanding.
Brilliant free kick.
The free kick, I mean, I've seen him before where he's done it and the way they do it, and as he's hit it, I actually went, as soon as he hit it, when he's done him, I could see John move slightly to his, he'd lost his balance and it's gone over his shoulder. Now, I'm going to sound a bit weird here. When he scores that goal, he celebrates like you'd expect. Then he scores a second one, and then he was taking the piss a little bit in the corner, you know, with his little step overs over the ball. You know, I have to say, Marcus has to do what Marcus needs to do, and Marcus is his own personality and character. Me, if I'd have played, I'd have been thinking, like that.
You would have him.
Yeah, I think what it is, it would have been my frustration would have allowed that. Now, at the end of the day, what Marcus done very well was his job. You know, he done it exceptionally well on the day, and I think you have to give him credit for that. But I think what it is, I have this real thing about I hate players taking the piss. And I watched a player the other day. in an academy game against a local team, and this lad was taking the piss. And actually, the opposing lad, the team they were playing against, wasn't a team of the same stature as us. So I felt he was taking the piss. And this lad for the opposition called him a knobhead. And part of me wanted to say, well, give him a good whack then and see what he does then. You see what I mean? Yeah, because I thought he was out of order, the lad taking the piss. And if I'd been the league coach on that day, I would have turned around and said, listen, mate, you come here, you struck your funky stuff, I ain't got an issue with that, but don't take the piss.
Yeah. Because
that, for me, is not right. And Marcus obviously enjoyed...
Just shake hands and walk off the pitch.
I think when he was trying the skill, it was a skill he was trying, and he bollocksed it up and ended up, believe it or not, kicking it out for a throw, and that's why the lad called him a knobhead. But the skill wasn't fitting at that pattern of play, you know. So, and I've always said, use the skill to get you out of trouble, not into trouble. And when I look back at Marcus, at Peterborough, he'd done his job exceptionally well in the day. The fact it was against us probably helped him, but I just thought maybe it's a little bit less piss-taking, if I'm honest. But that's me. But you have to give the bloke credits. 2 great goals, and like I say, definitely at that level, he's exceptional, and good on him as well.
Now, obviously, it's been such an exciting journey since Stuart and Charlie came in through the boardroom over a year ago. Now we've got all this takeover talk going on. Obviously, nothing's been announced officially yet, but doesn't that make you appreciate that the club is getting all this recognition at the minute, and you take that on board?
I think it's been such a not traumatic, that'd be the wrong words, but such a roller coaster of emotions the last X amount of years at the club. You know, if you look at, and I think when did I come back? 2003. You know, if you look over the years, it's never been as simple, has it? Really, it's always been something going on. But then someone once said to me, "We don't really want a boring year, do you?" Now I think one year we ended up finishing 8th under Steve Bruce, and it was a little bit of the way the results went at the end. It ended up meaning we ended up in that position, 10th. That's it. And it was quite weird because we never really had anything where we weren't fighting relegation, battling in a cup, or doing something. So you've had a lot of emotions over the years. A lot of things have happened over the years, and that. And when you consider, like I said, I've got nothing but respect for Ellis. It definitely didn't work out how he would have wanted it. Let's face it, no one spends the amount of money they do wanting to end up in the situation he did. So
at least he left on a high note, as people would say. I
think what Ellis done showed them a measure of the man when he left, because there's probably a lot of other things he could have done which would have put Sunderland Football Club in a even bigger load of trouble. But to give him credit, he didn't choose to do that. So I think his affinity with the club, even though he's probably spent an arm and a leg doing it, and he's going to spend the next 10 years probably doing his job to get it all back, to do what he done at the end, I think the man deserves enormous praise in that as well. So then when you look, when obviously Stuart came in and Charlie is, you know, in day, Stuart's the main man, Charlie's the man that's been, very, very good at getting everything across to the public, challenging them to do certain things. And what he's really done, if I'm brutally honest, he's rekindled that little bit of fire inside our bellies to say, well, come on then, you used to be like this, are you still like it? And he's challenged our supporters on numerous occasions, sometimes possibly a little bit OTT, because I think what he's really doing is going, come on then. It's like someone goading you in a scrap, come on then, until you end up either fighting or walking off. And he's done that very well. And I think the Sunderland fans, 100%, have always gone, yep, I've done it. And done it. So then, and Stuart, I said to him at the time when he came about, I said, be as transparent and honest with the supporters as you can. Now, I said, there's also stuff you ain't going to be able to be transparent and honest with, and you've got to do whatever you need to do for the good of the club and everything like that. But I said, but give them feedback, something that at the time Ellis didn't do, but that was his choice. He had other people to do it. So Stuart's done that, and I think the fact that, he had his little break from Twitter and that, because I think he got into a 1-2 with someone. That's
it got a little bit out of hand.
Yeah, I think what it is, I think when you look back now, Stuart, in the main, answered any questions that he was asked on there.
He's a good listener, isn't he?
He's a good listener. He quantified things he said back to people, so it wasn't just a case of, why don't you just F off, which if he wanted to, he could have done. He quantified stuff he was feeding back to people. He always had their back if they needed something he could help with, they'd done it. And let's face it, I think if we were to add up all the things he had done over the year, via Twitter, for the good of the club and the good of our supporters, it would be right up there with it. And then obviously you have that little spat with somebody, and then he decides to have a break from it. And I think, if I'm honest, Stuart probably needed a break as well, because
done him well.
I think Twitter in itself, if you're ever answering every bloody tweet, I would imagine he might as well say to his missus, listen, love, I ain't going to talk to you tonight. I'm going to sit on me feed.
You've got to have the right mentality with the job he does, especially to be on Twitter.
Yeah, well, I've got to be honest with you. I think it's hard work if you have to, you do it. I'll be honest with you, like that, along with whatever you do. But you give the bloke credit. He done it, and he done it very, very well. So, like I said, then you get to the stage now where the talk about us being took over again and that, and everybody's excited about it. I tend to be quite flatline about it till it happens.
Yeah, that's the same with me.
And I think that is maybe a trait of having coached in the past, played in the past, that if you allow your feelings to go through the roof every time something good happens, and then through the floor every time something bad happens, I'll be honest with you, you'd be demented by now, especially in football. So I try my hardest to go, well, if it happens, it happens. Is there a degree in my belly of excitement if it does happen for our supporters and the club itself? And really, if I'm honest with you, if it's done right, future generations of our club, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, like, coming towards the end now, like, it's just so happy to see such, like, bright smiles on the fans' faces again.
Yeah.
Like, after all these years of, like, despair, and it feels like, obviously you touched on it before, we've rekindled that passion that's just been lacking over the last few years.
I think if you look at the current crop of players, and it's going to sound like I'm going to dig out past players as well, it seemed like a lot of the players had lost their love of playing as well as playing for the club. And when things are repeatedly tough, it must be very, very difficult. You have to have a certain level of resilience to be able to keep putting up with that and fight. It must take the enjoyment out of it. No two ways about it. So you look at the current players and last year's, it looked like they enjoyed playing for the club. And yes, the level might be not where we want them to be at this moment, but we are. So we have to accept that. But it looked like they actually give a shit and wanted to do as much as they could for the club to be as successful as they can. Now that culminates last year in 2 trips to Wembley, where we all went down with magnificent hopes and we lost both games. Now, I'm going to sound like a cliche Sunderland supporter when they say, oh, we're used to it. My grandson came with me and our Luke. So we drove down on a boys' trip down. Thoroughly enjoyed the first time because you're down, stopping, seeing everybody, stop for a Mackie D's breakfast. I'm in a pair of joggers and that with my suit in the back ready, like, it was because I wanted to spend the time with them. This was like yes, obviously the club had said, listen, this is what you can do.
Was that the Portsmouth or
this is the Portsmouth one? Oh. So everything I wanted, I could have had. The club were excellent. We'd go down and I went, look, I'm going to go with my boy and River because I want them to experience what I had as a player and that, and
seeing
I want
all your old friends as well.
So and. Well, no, I was in the top suite with them down. This was the best bit. We got out the car. It was the funniest ever. So we went to McDonald's, see everybody. It was lovely, great time. River was buzzing, Luke was buzzing. I think I was being a typical dad on the way because Luke was driving. I was telling him to slow down, and by all accounts, he got so far down. And my mate rang me, and I went, "You're right." He went, "Yeah." He says, "Your boy driving too fast." I went, what are you on about? He went, oh, he's tweeted, oh, my dad's at it again, thinks he's this, like, and started giving, but Luke's very funny on Twitter, and the bowl accounts are coming for a lot of stick off him, but that's the relationship we have. He knows how to take the piss out
Provides
of us.
The banter.
So we go to Wembley, we enjoy that. And like I said, I got there. Luke and our River went one way. I went upstairs with my suit and all suited and booted. Then we arranged to meet afterwards. And River was devastated. But what he did enjoy was seeing pictures of his granddad around the walkway in Wembley from the playoff final, because obviously it was allegedly one of the top 10 games ever there. And there's a nice photo. Admittedly, I think it's of Clive scoring, but me in the background probably thinking, fuck it, like that. But it's a fantastic picture of me in it. And our River was like, oh, there's my granddad. Because I don't think he'd really connect the two that I used to play.
Could see it on Netflix maybe if the second series goes again.
In time, like we'll show him the second thing on Netflix. I mean, I'm not convinced I want to show Sacco to River on Premier Passions. Maybe again, granddad, what does he mean by that? But then the second time you go down, you have this bigger day, the playoff final, and the fact that everything that went with it, bearing in mind it was Charlton again, and you're hoping la-di-da-di-da.
It wasn't quite the same feel.
I agree with that. I agree with that, and you lose that. Now you're looking at your grandson, who you hope is a future generation, and then I go back to what I said about if the takeover goes through, and say hopefully it does. He's now a generation of our next supporter, And I'm looking at him, I think he's 8 years old, he's been to Wembley twice and the poor bugger's lost both times. So he's quite upset after the game. And I, matter of fact, went, did you enjoy that? He went, yeah, and he was upset. I went, well, son, you'll have to get used to that. I said, maybe we'll come one day here and win. And we just then, that was it. And then we got in the car and drove home. Now, that wasn't me generalising or making a joke of our past experience at Wembley, because one day it will change. And that was my attitude in both these games. It's got to change one day. We just got to make that day happen sooner rather than later, because we are accepting if we go to Wembley, I will get beat. That has become a little bit of a, not a joke, a little bit of a statement amongst everybody.
I mean, I'm personally sick of hearing it when I go down
and
there.
you do. And do you know what it is? Totally agree with that. Because, but don't forget though, how old are you?
I'm 23.
Right, how many times have you been to Wembley?
It will be Man City the first time in 2014, and then the other two against Portsmouth.
So from your point of view, you've been 3 times now, and you feel sick of it. Then you've got to say to yourself, well, what about a 70-year-old supporter who might have gone in 1973, but have also been all the other times and been beat? And it doesn't become a standing joke. It becomes realisation, because it is realisation. We're going to Wembley and we're not finally getting over the final hurdle. We're not actually crossing the finish line as winners. We're coming runners-up. And I spoke with, I sent a message to Jordan Henderson after the Premier League. They lost the Premier League, and I turned around and said, fantastic achievement this year, Jordan. But let's be honest with you, no one gives a shit about a loser. Now, I didn't probably say in those words quite as curt as that.
He'll probably be a little bit more understanding about it.
Well, it was when I put the next bit, because I went, I bet you didn't realise I played in the 92 Cup final against Liverpool and I've got a runners-up medal. No one gives a shit about 92 because we didn't win.
No.
And that was what I was saying to him. Now, there was again a bit of a methodology in what I was saying, and he was saying that. I said, but what you do have now is the opportunity to put that right in the Champions League final. Now, I'm going to sound like it's easy for me to say this because he won it, but I said last year he would pick the trophy up. The first person I ever told he would pick the trophy up was my missus, because we were sat in a bar on holiday watching it, and I turned around when I watched him walk past the Champions League the first time they lost it, I went, he'll pick that up one day. And to do it the following year is beyond extremely, it's magnificent. So what I am saying is, yes, it's become a party joke about us losing at Wembley.
Seeing his dad in the crowd as well.
Yeah, that was lovely. That was brilliant. But the bit about Wembley I'm saying is, it will change. But we have to, not as just a club, we have to as a team, a club, our supporters, it has to change. Do we accept that we have a bit of a laugh when everyone goes, I'm sick and tired of going there? Yeah, but isn't it funny how they still bloody go? It's true, isn't it, though? They still go.
Absolutely.
So it will change, but hopefully we won't go to Wembley this year in the playoff final. We'll have gone up automatic. And if we do that, I think everybody should pat on the back, whoever's in charge then, whether it be Stuart and his cohorts now, whether it be a new regime with the backing of these. And I think biggest pat on the back probably should be given to Jack Ross for me, because I think you also have to understand he came in last year and lots and lots and lots of changes in the club. Came in at a time when really probably didn't know what his budget was, what his players were like. He came in quite cold with it all. A lot of changes. For me, he has stabilised the club, and I know some people that go, we need to do this, I get all of that. But this is a man who does want to help take the club forward. This is a man that does have the club at heart. This is a man that does understand, and he has admitted himself that promotion was his aim last year and he didn't achieve it, and that's why he knows he needs to do it this year. But what you are getting there is a man who does want to get it, a man that does want to take this club forward. And from my point of view, we end the season with promotion. Like him and his staff and the players should be given a massive pat on the back.
Kevin, absolutely fantastic having you on. Wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
Keep the faith.
All right, you too, mate.
Cheers.
Hey, we always do.